everyone, and a very warm welcome to the follow-up session. Namaste Parikshit Bhaiya.
नमस्ते मनीषा दीदी, स्वागत है सभी participants का और it's good to see there are many students also joined with us.
Yes, nice.
Arjun ji also there and it's really a family and growing day by day.
Nicely, yes, I can
We
see
all
that.
are enjoying. Yes, we all are enjoying one another's company and sharing of values. It's really a good thing and
Very rightly said, Parikshit Bhaiya. And a very warm welcome to everyone present here, all the participants, and
we can invite
Arjun ji.
some participants also if they like to share.
Yes, it will be wonderful to listen to them because earlier I saw one of the hand
Certainly.
risen, but then and now probably, yes, I can see one more. Debanga
Renly ji has
Sharma
some
ji.
mic is there. Yeah, Devangi.
Yes, you have the mic, please. Would you like to share something?
Yes, ma'am, bolo.
Good evening and a very warm welcome.
Evening.
Many of our friends are there. Nice, Parikshit Bhaiya. I heard you in the morning. Very nice.
Nice disease. Really nice and very encouraging. Yes.
Yes.
Weather are also changing. Monsoon is knocking
Yes.
on the door.
Nice. So how is it in Delhi? Like it's very humid in Lucknow today.
It's a bit humid since last 2 days, but now cooling down a bit.
Okay.
Less humid today. Let's ask from other family members also. We have
Certainly,
a very
we like to hear them.
Good evening, ma'am. I'm Priya.
Nice, Priya ma'am. A very warm welcome. It's always really pleasant to listen to you.
Thank
so,
you.
Priya ma'am, your students could join in?
Actually, today I didn't see anyone. Last week and all, many of them joined.
Nice.
Today I didn't see. I told them yesterday was the class I had with them.
Yeah.
You can join, but you cannot force them. I think today there were many many classes today. Their official classes, they were so much. I think they got tired.
Nice. Still, I see many students like Muskan is there. Then I see Virendra Patil ji is there. So plenty of students are there. It will be wonderful if the students can do a bit of sharing and they can put forward their queries which they like to be resolved. That will be really good.
They can write in the chat box also if they.
Yes. It can be taken up from the chat box as well. So Arjun, a very warm welcome. I think we are not able to reach Arjun. Is it so? Parikshit Bhaiya?
Oh, I was muted actually.
Okay. Good evening and a very warm welcome.
Good evening.
So Muskan is also there, one of our students. I think Muskan, you're going to be quite communicative during the discussion. So today's session is going to be on trust, the foundation value of all the relationships between one human and the other human. So Arjun, a very warm welcome to you. I think we'll begin the session and then maybe the students will come up with their. I can see Debang has been trying to talk to us, but somehow maybe it's the connectivity issue. We are not able to really hear him.
Rainal is also raising the hands.
Yes, Rainal, please come forward with your query. Yes, the mic has been handed over to you, beta. Can you talk to us? Or is there some connectivity issue? Maybe you can put your query in the chat. We can take it from there. We can take it from the chat in case any mic issues there. Okay, Debang Singh, she's from Debang is from Assam. That's good. Welcome, beta. Arjun, I think we'll begin with our session. Maybe the children will come up with their yes, Mr. Elango.
Yeah.
Namaste and a very warm welcome.
Right. Thank you, madam. Thank you. Namaste.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
good, Arjun. I think we'll begin with the session, Arjun. Maybe
Sure.
the students and the faculty alike will come up with the discussions and queries then.
Sure. So if the chat is easier, then we can just communicate through the chat in case if there's a connection issue or something.
Certainly. Definitely.
So in today's session, we'll talk about trust. Last time we were talking a little bit about the way that our whole system is working and how natural acceptance is something which is innate to us. We were discussing all that, and that natural acceptance is universal, whereas likes and dislikes are dependent on our taste and our preconditioning and so many factors. So basically, again, like we are always starting with this slide because this is like uh, the thing which is the backbone, or the thing which is the crux of what we are trying to get into, and all the other things are details about these broader blocks which we can see. Like our basic aspiration of continuous happiness and prosperity is something which is very kind of basic to all of us, and all of us, whatever we are doing for this reason only, even though we might not really realize that this is the reason why we are doing what we are doing. There's no other reason, because if you can think of any other reason, what could it be? I mean, other than continuous happiness and prosperity, if you have these two, then anyway, you don't need anything else. So, whatever we are doing in our whole life, over the whole span of our life, from birth to death, that whole span of time, we are just doing things for the same purpose. So, this is our human aspiration, as we can see. And our program for fulfillment also, when we really try to understand what it is, then we come to the conclusion. We can always like explore this and keep it open. We don't have to come to a conclusion right now, but then we can see if this is going to work for us or not, about whether understanding harmony and living in harmony would be what is naturally acceptable for us. And we can explore all this through self exploration. So that way, our answers will be very firm rather than something which we just grasp intellectually and then keep in our memory, and then then it may not become true for us. So when we do things through self exploration and we get our own conclusions which keep coming to us from our natural acceptance, then they become more permanent. So this is the process. We'll discuss about trust. These are the 9 feelings in the relationship. But before that, we want to just talk about the fact that relationship is between oneself and another self. We've seen that the human being is a coexistence of self and body, where um, the two are in harmony, where the self is the one who takes all the decisions, and everything running in the mind is also part of the self. Whereas the body, if you see, the body is just taking instructions from the self and doing things like whatever the self asks the body to do. So if the self asks the body to get up from your chair, then the body gets up. If the self asks the body to uh, start walking, then the body starts walking. So it doesn't happen automatically. In a similar way, our thoughts also don't happen automatically. the self is giving instructions. I mean, our not thoughts, our what do you call, everything in the body. Like if you see our if you see very subtle things like our digestive system and all that also is running only because the self is giving instructions to the body to run it in that way. So the self is a very kind of deep deep thing which we've just seen a little bit of it. But if we go deeper and deeper, then there's a lot which is happening in the self. So anyway, I went a little bit on a tangent, but what we are trying to talk about is that relationship is between oneself and another self, and it's not between one body and another body, because the feelings are in the self, the feelings are not in the body. And when we fully understand this, then it leads to happiness in ourself and also happiness in the other self. So that is called mutual happiness. So this is what we want also on a continuous basis, that we always want these feelings. We don't want to break in any of these feelings. So in today's session, we'll talk about trust. So what exactly we mean by trust? Right now, um, we have this thing about trust. Like right now, we have a preconditioning or an assumption that trust is something which depends on the other person also. It depends on us also. It depends on whether we know that person or not from before, and so many things. But today we'll look into it a little bit more and see whether those conditions really have to be met or not, and what exactly we mean by trust. So broadly, we can see trust is to be assured in any relationship. That is the basic thing, because that means the other person knows that the other person wants to make me happy, and I also want to make the other person happy, and we are kind of assured in that relationship. So if you take two individuals, or you take even broader, we can look at it one by one to see what exactly we mean by trust. So we'll just ask these questions because this will make it more clear about how we can split our ability with our competence. So, about your natural acceptance. Natural acceptance is something innate, which we all have inside us. We just have to access it. So, if we say this fact 1A, is it true for you or not true for you? You can just write yes or no in the chat. I want to make myself happy. Is this something which is true for you, and is it like something which is very clear for you to see, or do you have any doubt about this? We're not asking if you're able to make yourself happy or not all the time, but do you want to be happy all the time? Do you want to make yourself happy all the time? That is the question. So people are saying yes, and it looks like a very simple question because it's very obvious to you that you want to be happy all the time. And 2A, do you want to make the other person happy, whoever you are interacting with? Like if you're talking to someone, or if you're interacting with whoever you're interacting with in that relationship, I want to make the other person happy. Is that true for you or not true for you, or does it depend on the other person? Like if it's a stranger, or if it is something someone who has done something bad to you maybe, or if it is someone who you don't like for some reason or something like that, then would that still be a yes for you, or would that be a no? You can just write in the chat. And 3A is that the other wants to make himself happy or herself happy. That means we're trying to look from the other person's point of view, that does the other person want to make himself or herself happy? And 4 is that the other person wants to make me happy. So what about 4A? What do you think? You can write in the chat. We'll go through one by one. So it's very clear about 1A, right? 1A is very clear. To some extent, you're clear. I mean, because you feel like you want to do something good for the other person also.
Personality may or may not.
What about this one? 3A. The other wants to make himself or herself happy. So
A is true.
So this, I mean, like, if you can see that 1A is true for you, then can you assume that 3A would be true for the other person?
Yes.
Or does it depend on the other person? Like, a few comments are there about it, that it may depend on the other person also. But if you just look at natural acceptance, which is something innate, we can clearly see that, like, in this chat itself, 3A, I mean, in this chat itself, everybody is very sure about 1A, right? Everybody is very sure that they want to make themselves happy. So can we assume that the other also wants to make himself or herself happy all the time, just like us? Or does it again depend on the other person? Does it still depend on the other person? What do you think? So if you're able to just assume based on what it is for you and what it is for others around you, then you can put a tick on 3A also, that it is very kind of getting clear. And about 4A, that the other wants to make me happy. What about this one? Is it something which you're very sure about, or is it something which you're still 4A? There's a component of doubt. There is, in the chat, it says that there may be a component of doubt. So we'll look into it. Right now, we component of doubt, because for many people there may be a doubt over here. So this is what is happening in our intention. Like, this is what is coming naturally to us in terms of our intention, right? This is what we want. This is not what we are. This is what we want. Like, even 1A, we want to make ourselves happy all the time. But are we able to is a different thing. So that's what we are going to ask next. That we will check our ability also. We've already seen our intention. This is what we want. On the left side, it's all about what we want, our intention, and our desire for that relationship to be harmonious and for us to make ourselves happy and the other happy. But let's look at our ability also now. Like, what are we able to do right now? So we have these four again. So what do you think about 1B? Are you able to make yourself happy all the time? You can answer that. 1B, what do you think? Would that be a yes or no for 1B about your ability? That means that you never have any fluctuation of your mood, or you never have any kind of even slight feeling of doubt of anything, or you never have the slightest feeling of unhappiness. So is that, I mean, a yes or a no for you? You can just write in the chat. Okay, so this, everyone is saying no. So it's some people are saying yes also, I think, but it's mostly a no for everyone, because yourself that you have some fluctuation in mood sometimes based on certain situations, or because we are not really having the full ability, we don't have the full understanding of all these things, not in terms of intellectual understanding, but in terms of actually imbibing all these things. So we have a little bit of a shortcoming over there. We can see that we're not able to do this all the time. We're not able to be happy all the time, even though we want to be happy all the time. So there's a difference between 1A and 1B. And similarly, there's a difference between 2A and 2B also, right? We're not able to make the other also happy all the time. What do you think? 2B. Are we able to do 2B? Are we able to make the other person also happy all the time? So this is also, we're not sure. Sometimes we are able to make the other happy. Sometimes it depends on the other person's mood. Sometimes we are not able to communicate our feelings also properly. Sometimes we don't have the right feelings inside us also, right? So lots of reasons might be there. So that's why it's doubtful. We're not able to do it all the time. Yeah, so there's a comment that we try to make the other happy. And when we are saying that we try to make the other happy, we are going into our intention that we want to make the other happy and we are trying also. That's part of our intention that we want to, and we're trying, we're making effort for it also, right? But then when it comes to the result or the ability of all those efforts and all those thoughts and everything, then are we able to or not is a very different thing from what we are trying to do, right? So that way we can just compare these two and we can just see what is happening over there. And then 4B, what do you think about 4B? That the other is able to make me happy. What do you think about that? You can write yes or no in the chat.
We can see Muskan writing. I'll just read it out to you. Just a moment. I'll just move the cursor. Yes. Yes, we'll try to make others happy. The other is able to make herself happy. It depends on their behavior. This is what Muskan has to say.
Okay. So,
And then Shelja ji is also saying our intent is always there to make others happy, but not sure of others. And Ashish Das ji is saying 4B is not possible.
okay. So
Yes.
that's why there are two question marks over there, because there's a lot of kind of uncertainty about that. And Muskan's comment about what is it? That the other is able to make herself happy depends on their behavior. So, no, but we're talking about the other is able to make me happy, where 4B is about that. The other is able to make herself happy is 3B, right? So you're talking about that. It depends on her behavior. Yeah, so we are just looking at whether we're just looking at both sides and looking at broadly what is our intention and what is our ability. And we can see a clear difference in these two, right? That our intention might be quite different from our ability. You might have sometimes an intention to wake up early for some reason for 10 days or something, but then you're not able to. But then when you have to catch a flight which is early morning, then you wake up. So why is that? It's because, like, you have the intention, but then you're not really putting in all the effort, enough effort to do it in such a way. Like, the competence is slightly lacking in terms of having that discipline and doing things the way that you actually intend to do. Like, sometimes it happens, right, that you intend to study for 4 hours, but then you take a break for 2 or 3 hours, and then this kind of thing also happens, right? At least for me, it used to happen in college. So our intention might be different from our ability. So when we are looking at our intention, then what do we really focus on? We are focusing, I mean, like, when we look at any relationship, any interaction with other people, then what are we focusing on right now? We are looking at our intention, right? We are looking at the fact that we want to make the other happy. We want to be happy. We want to make the other happy. But then what we end up doing many times is that we're focusing on our intention, but we are judging the other person's, we are looking at the other person's competence, right? And we are trying to conclude that the other person has the wrong intention. So look at this very carefully, that what is happening in most of our day-to-day interactions and relations is that we are looking at our intention and saying, okay, I want to do the right thing. I want to make myself happy. I want to make the other happy. And we're comparing that, or we are kind of equating that with something which is in the other person's ability, because that's what we're able to see. Like, we're able to see the other person's ability because that is straightforward in front of us. So we're ending up comparing the other person's ability with our intention. So that is not really a fair comparison, because we also lack competence in so many areas. So if we compare our intention with the other person's intention, and we compare our competence with the other person's competence, that would be a more fair comparison. So for example, we compare 1A, 2A with 1B, 2B. So it's very clear to me that I want to make myself happy. I want to make the other person also happy, right? So we can compare that with with this part of it, that I'm able to make myself happy, yes or no, and I'm able to make the other happy, yes or no. So we should look at our ability and look at the other person's ability, rather than comparing something which will not really is not really comparable. So we'll take an example also to illustrate this thing, that suppose the glass, you had a glass and it slipped from your hand and it broke. Then what do you say? You say that, okay, I was trying to be careful, but by mistake it broke, right? But when the same thing happens with the other person, then you may say that the other person broke the glass. So even though it looks very similar, it's not so similar, because we are looking at things in a totally different way. Like, we're looking at the intention of the other. I mean, we're looking at the competence of the other, and we are concluding that the intention is not right. And for us, we are not doubting our intention. We are just thinking that our intention is right. So we must be doing the right thing, and our competence also must be fine. But we're not looking at the fact that we also lack competence, even though we have the right intention. And similarly, the other person also has the right intention. So just look at this in a little bit more detail. Like, try to explore all your, when you have a fight or something, right? Even a small irritation for some reason with someone else, then try to look at their intention and try to look at their competence. Look at both of them instead of looking at their competence and trying to equate it to your intention, because that becomes an unfair comparison. So is this something which you can see that this is happening, right? This is happening in our interactions sometimes. Wherever there's any kind of irritation or any kind of place where we get even a little bit upset, then it's mostly happening because of this, that we are doubting the intention of the other. So whenever the doubt on intention is there, then it creates a little bit of unpleasantness, like a little bit of that feeling where we are not happy within, because the feeling is breaking. The feeling of trust is breaking for those few moments. So whenever that happens, we feel kind of you feel that it's not such a good feeling, because your trust is slightly breaking for that period of time, and then again it keeps fluctuating because of the fact that we're not always sure of the other person's intention. But if we're able to see our natural acceptance very clearly, and be able to, see the other person's natural acceptance also directly, then we'll never have any kind of doubt on intention. So this is where we want to reach in terms of our feeling. So another comment is there, Muskan, saying that the relationship is always built on trust and it is very hard to build the trust. So building the trust is only about trying to assure the other person also that you are interested in making them happy. Once that becomes clear to them, you don't have to say that, but in your actions, in your behavior, if it comes across, in your feeling, if it's coming across, then it'll eventually come across in everything. So if the feeling is there for the other person and for trying to make the other person happy, then that builds that kind of trust, that makes the other person assured in the relationship. So the other person feels that you are trying to help them to be happy, you're trying to do something for them. So that way that becomes strong. And if there's any event which happens which uh, like miscommunication or misunderstanding kind of situation, then we should always like look at our intention and look at the other person's intention also. Like suppose um, some kind of misunderstanding happened in any situation. Say you're having a small fight about, say, let's say that about dinner time, that suppose I want to have dinner at 7 o'clock and my brother wants to have dinner at 8 o'clock for different reasons. I mean, it might be something like that. So that might create a little bit of a issue, right? Or suppose two people are watching TV and one person wants to watch one program and the other person wants to watch another program. So in all these kind of situations, if we look at the intention, the intention of both people is to be happy and to make the other happy. But in terms of competence, if you look, both people are trying to derive that happiness out of that particular TV show, right? So how do you solve that kind of issue? If anyone wants to write down, I'm just taking random examples, but then if you have your own example or your own question, then we can try to correlate it with this intention versus competence. Okay, so um, in that example, you would have to do something so that the relationship is maintained, and at the same time, there's no feeling of, lack. There's no feeling that you didn't get what you want or something like that. So for that, understanding is the route to that also, because we want to have the right feelings in the relationship. So our intention we can see the other person's intention as well. And in terms of competence, we both lack competence because we both are addicted to different TV programs. So then we see that, do we really want to do this for happiness? Does it actually lead to continuous happiness or not? If not, then maybe we can spend that time on something else. And if it feels like it gives us a little bit of temporary happiness, even though we know that it won't give us any kind of permanent or continuous happiness, then still we can um, go with that thing and say that, okay, it at least distracts my mind for this much time. So let me um, spend half the time and you spend half the time watching your thing and I watch my thing or something like that. You can do things where you're able to see each other's intention and see each other's competence and then make some solution for it. So when it comes to that kind of style of solving the problem, then it is much easier because then um, you don't have the wrong feeling sitting inside you all the time. You have the feeling that okay, we both lack competence in one thing and we both get um, a little bit distracted with this TV program, and we know that it doesn't give us continuous happiness, but we still like to do it because while exploring that path of continuous happiness, we are just taking a break from the regular things and a little bit of unhappiness which is coming. So we're just, doing that. So you could have various kinds of reasons and various kinds of discussions, and therefore come to some conclusion on a solution. But all this is not really as easy if we're not able to see each other's intention and competence and all that. Because then we do things unwillingly, or then we take our decisions without liking those decisions, and so on. So there are lots of things like that. So lots of questions also came meanwhile. Um, okay. How do we make trust with our friends? So we can work first towards understanding so that we have the right feelings within ourselves, and then we are able to be happy for at least more percentage of the time than what we are right now. And then with that, we try to spread that. So when we try to spread that happiness which is coming from within us, then the other person also starts seeing that, and we feel like we are concerned for the other person and trying to help them to understand something or trying to help them to be happy. So when the other person starts seeing that the other that you want to make them happy, when the other person starts seeing this part, the other wants to make me happy, when the other person starts seeing this foray, right, at that time the other person becomes assured in the relation, and then the trust is established. So there's one more about trust but verify. Is this a right approach to trusting others? So when you're talking about verify, we are looking at competence, right? Because in terms of intention, we can clearly see that our intention is to be happy and our intention is to make the other happy. And we can also assume, because of natural acceptance being universal, we can also we can still explore it. You don't have to conclude it right now, but then you can also see 3A and 4A, that the other wants to make himself or herself happy, and the other wants to make me also happy. So if we are able to see this much in terms of intention, then we should also be able to see our ability and the other person's ability, and therefore make a decision about whether to, like, what to do, like, further. Like, I took this example in a previous session about a thief. Like, suppose there's a thief outside, then question is, should we lock our house or should we just assume that it will be okay because we can have trust on everybody? So what do you do in such situations, in practical day-to-day situations, is that we split them into intention and competence, and then we make the program, then we make the decision. So in this thief scenario, we would choose to lock the gates because the other person has less competence in terms of understanding that it is not really a good thing to steal from another person, right? So we can see that the other person lacks that competence, or in general, that in the society there may be people like that who lack that competence um, to see that, and therefore we make a decision to lock the house. So similarly, in our suppose we're going in a train, then we don't just keep our wallet and everything right in front and then go to the bathroom and come back and all that, right? We don't do these things because we know that there may be people who might decide to take our belongings and things, right? So why do we do that? We can see that the other person may have less competence in this field in terms of understanding that physical facility. When we are trying to steal from the other, grab from the other, then it's not the right thing to do. It's not naturally acceptable. But you might do it just because of the understanding that if you have more physical facility, you can be happier, or even if it is to fulfill his basic needs, whatever the reason may be, he's not able to see that snatching from the other is not the right thing to do. So all kinds of people may be there. So whenever we make a program with anybody or any situation, we really need to look at both aspects, the intention and the competence. So if we can see that people around may have less competence in a certain situation, then our action plan also will be accordingly. So that is what you mean by verification, I think, that um, about verification. But you've also written that I feel verification is always towards intention. But the thing is about intention, like let's take this thief example only. That let's see from his point of view. That okay, he wants to be happy, he wants to make the other also happy, right? But this is something which is kind of suppressed in his self. In his self, the main thing which is coming is 1A. 2A is kind of suppressed, but it is there because natural acceptance is something which, it's there for everyone. And for 2A, for the thief, he might want to make the other happy only if the other is his family member. He might not care about making the other happy if the other is a stranger because he can steal from the stranger. He feels that that is okay. But he feels that it's not right to steal from our own family people because he wants to make the other happy in his family. So his definition of the other is only limited to his family, and he's willing to do anything to make the others unhappy if they're outside the family. So when you have such kind of things happening, then obviously there'll be a problem that he might do stealing or he might do murder or whatever he may be doing. That is just because he doesn't have the understanding of the whole picture. He's only looking at the other as just in his family. So when we look at his intention is right to some extent. I mean, like to the full extent, you can say his intention is to make the other happy, but he's not able to see what is the other, what exactly he can do, and he's not able to look at this properly. But if you see his competence, he's employing a wrong method to do whatever he wants to do because he's looking at his whole thing from only the fact that he wants to make himself happy and his family happy. That's all. And he's willing to do things which are wrong, like stealing type of things and all. So whenever you do something like this, then you end up um having the right intention but the like low level of competence. So it is still possible to work with such people because down below there's something where there's a pure part of us which is our natural acceptance, which is kind of uncorrupted by all these things. So once you start looking at that, then you can see that even the thief, even though it looks like in his perception the other is only his family, when we look at his proper natural acceptance, then we can see that he wants to make everyone happy actually, but he's not able to see that, and therefore his competence is to think that he wants to make only his family happy. So his competence is lacking in terms of that thought process about what he wants actually. So even though his natural acceptance is to make everyone happy, his competence is to think that his family is the only thing, or his people, whatever he's around, those people who are around him, only that much is important, and therefore his competence is only that to think that he wants to make only a few people happy. So like that, it is very kind of different when we look at natural acceptance and our competence. So because of this mismatch being so much, whenever we take any action plan or whenever we make any program of what to do, we can always look at both aspects, and then we can directly see, actually after a point you can directly see that the natural acceptance of everybody is the same. It's just that because of different preconditionings, different assumptions and all that, they may be doing things differently, and therefore, I mean, they may be thinking differently about all these things. their mindset might be totally different, and therefore their action will be totally different, which may be acceptable or not acceptable in the society, and the right thing or not the right thing, and all that.
Arjun, there's a question from Muskan. Same answer what you're telling, but she's asking in a different way. So if we always try to make others happy, but others are not making ourselves happy.
What do you mean?
They are the same. So, so if the last one, so if we always try to make other happy, but others are not making them happy. That's what she meant. She's trying to make others happy, but they are not making her happy. The student.
Okay.
Which is
So when we look at the feelings, right, then we can see that we have these feelings within ourselves, but when we are trying to expect these feelings from the other person, then there may be a problem. So suppose you want to be respected, you want to be loved, you want to be accepted, right? Then does that depend on the other, or can you have those feelings within yourself without having to depend on trying to get those feelings from the other person? This is very important, because when we try to get feelings from the other, then it always depends on the other, and it always depends on whether they're giving you those feelings or not. And if they're giving you those feelings, you feel happy. If they're not giving, then you don't feel happy. So in other words, your happiness has become in their control, because you're not able to maintain that happiness for yourself without the need for the other. So therefore you try to expect from the other. That happens. So when that happens, it's like kind of giving your TV remote to the other person so that the other person is able to switch it on or switch it off. Something like that. But if you have your own remote in your own hand, then you can switch it on or switch it off whenever you want, and you will always keep it on if it's about happiness, right? So once you can switch it on for more percentage of the time, once you can be happy for more percentage of the time, then when you spread that happiness, when you try to do things for the other also for their happiness in a genuine way, not something fake or something, when you genuinely have those feelings for the other person, then the other person also may give you those feelings. He may not give it also, he may give it also. That is up to them and their understanding and all. You know, their understanding may be different. So the other person may or may not give you those feelings. But regardless of that, you will be having those feelings inside if you're able to have the understanding within the self. So that is what it is actually. So sometimes the other people give a lot of feelings also, like people who are surrounded by a lot of people, they might keep receiving different kinds of feelings every time. Like with, say, movie stars and all, it happens, right, that they get a lot of different kinds of feelings being communicated to them and coming to them. And when their career is over, I mean, when their career is going on, they get a lot of that appreciation and all that, and then because of that they become happy. And then when their career is over, then if they stop getting those feelings from the other, then sometimes they go into depression because they're not getting those feelings from the other. So what we really need to do is to work on our own understanding so that we can have those feelings within ourselves, and then we can share those feelings with others. So that would be the route for that.
Nice, Arjun. I can see Dr. Balaji. Uh, Dr. Balaji Sidram. So you have the mic. Would you like to put forward any of your views?
Yeah.
Good evening. Please go ahead.
Yeah, madam. What happens when I am in the friend circle? Okay, suppose there are 20 my friends and I am there. So by making some jokes, or it's my habit, I make them happy. But if I think in 2 to 3 months, okay, duration. So even others never make try even to make me happy. Sometimes I'm nervous that time. So why this happens like that? Maybe it's my problem or their problem.
Well,
Talk about
Arjun,
it.
would you like to take up this particular point which sir said? Are you able to
Yeah.
listen to it?
Got it. We can take up.
Yes, please.
So I think it's 2 or 3 things getting mixed. One of them is that when you're telling the joke to the other, then are you having the expectation that the other person will
No. But yeah, I never keep the expectation. But sometimes I get nervous from from them, not by due to that they made joke, but maybe they are thinking you make others happy, so you are the only one person to make happy, and some persons are not feeling good like that. So he talks me, then I become nervous like that.
nervous in what? I didn't get. Like, why nervous?
Means how I to say, suppose I make one joke and so 20 people are laughing. Okay, so this happens 1 week. Okay, for example, and there is one person out of 20, so he don't like that what I am doing, and he express himself to me, and that
Okay.
time I become nervous.
Okay. So what you're doing, if it depends on the other person, then you'll do only what is pleasing for them, right? What
Yeah.
you're doing depends on what you want to do, then it is totally different. Because
Okay.
um, when you're doing things only to please the other person, then you have to do only things which are in their taste.
Okay.
So if you're doing that, then it becomes a compromise also, right? Between what you want to do and you what the other person wants to hear from you, or something like that, right? So that conflict within comes. Therefore, you feel a little bit uneasy because of that. So
Okay.
you can make what you want to do very clear and make it such that whatever the other person may say, you may not have any kind of either, I mean, both ways. You don't have any expectation also in terms of appreciation or criticism or whatever may come. You just take it because you are very sure that what you're doing is something which you want to do.
Okay, sometimes what I feel, what quality I have to make other happy, so this quality may absent in that person, so therefore he is making unhappy to me by saying something like that.
Possible, but
Yeah.
before we conclude that, we can, I mean, when we conclude that, we can again see that, okay, your intention is to make the other happy. That person's intention also may be to make you happy, but he may not be able to. And same with you also, that you're trying to make the other happy, but we don't know what is really happening in the other. All this we
Okay,
can
sir.
see. And when we look at this properly, then we see that the other is not able to make themselves happy also. So expecting them to make you happy is very far-fetched, right? When they're not able to make, when we are not able to make ourselves happy all the time, then
Yeah.
then we can also see that from the other side also, right? From the other person's point also, that he is also not able to make himself happy. I am also not able to make myself happy. But from both sides, we want it. We want it for ourselves, we want it for the other. So what we do in such a case is that if the relation is good, established, and you're able to see this, the other person is also able to see this much, then you can make a program on how to um, improve each other's competence.
Okay.
So when we try to improve each other's competence, then we try to bring each other to the same level. Like suppose I feel that I'm at a higher level in terms of understanding of these things, and not just in terms of theoretical knowledge and stuff. Theoretical knowledge doesn't matter so much. What we're talking about is in terms of our feeling and our happiness and all that. So if we feel that we are at a higher level in those things, then what we can do, if the relation is properly assured, properly established, is that we can try to help the other person also to come to our level. And similarly, if the other person is at a higher level, in terms of understanding, in terms of that happiness and all that, then we can try to learn from the other, try to take help from the other, and try to come to his level. So that way we can see that we are complementary. So instead of only looking at it as, is it my problem or their problem, we can see that, okay, both of us have different levels of competence. I am better at certain things, the other person is better at certain things. Maybe I'm better at cracking jokes, the other person is better at say cooking food, or anything like that you take. Then you become complementary, where you start working together also, and you start kind of exchanging your ideas as well, but also trying to see the complementarity in terms of your skills also, in terms of your competence also, and then you make a plan for what you can do to make each other happy.
Nice. Very nice. Mr. Hemantji. Hemant sir, would you like to discuss something? So Arjun, I think we can go ahead. Muskan has expressed like she's studying at Government Polytechnic College, Jammu, and she's saying thank you AICT for conducting these type of sessions, which is really helpful to us. And also thank you Arjun Astana sir. Very sweet of her. Muskan, we are really blessed to have you and students like you in our follow-up sessions. We want more and more students. Maybe you can take your friends also to listen, to be participating in these sessions, so that we can help each other, develop a better understanding.
Definitely.
Yes, this is. This is quite good. That students are, communicating and taking an active part. That's really nice.
Yes, that's very important also to know what exactly things are going on, like what issues are there and what day-to-day situations are there and all that. We can get more into that also. That would be, it's already better than before, I think, because there was not much interaction.
Yes, rightly said, Arjun. In fact, it will be so nice if children can, if all can just unmute and communicate by speaking directly. That will be really good. But anyway, chat is also fine. We can pick questions from there.
A beautiful explanation by Arjun.
Oh, yeah.
Listening to him, he is explaining beautifully, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, I like your concept and I like your analysis. That is very, very good. Okay, this is my opinion. And rest, okay.
Yeah, of course, I'm Priya. Of course, Arjun, you give the view of the students. Actually, we are teachers. When we tell, we might tell in that age aspect. So you're giving as a student's aspect. And today, I think we had a lot of questions from the students. It was very nice. Even though the chat box.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, that is nice that it's more interactive and we can discuss more. So what we are looking at in the end now, to end it, we'll just look at this thing briefly, like a summary, that what we are generally doing is that we are evaluating ourselves on the basis of our intention, and we are evaluating the other on the basis of their competence. So we're making a kind of unfair comparison, and therefore we are concluding that the other the other doesn't want to make me happy. We're not seeing that the other is not able to make me happy, but we are trying to interpret that as the fact that the other doesn't want to make me happy. So that is a mistake. And that causes doubt in the intention. And doubt in the intention leads to all kinds of negative issues. So we'll talk more about this in the next session. If there's any question or something, we can take up now.
Sir, this is Shailaja here. May I go ahead with one point? I have one point to make.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm just trying to see this particular value education. The intention of it is to bring the change in the thought process of the people in the education. And I look at it, there are two forces usually act whenever we want to change something. One is the driving forces and the restraining forces. So right now, the driving forces are towards changing the value system. And what is restraining is in terms of the physical facilities that one has, and why people do compare and then why they don't follow the values is because of the restraining forces that could be in terms of physical facilities that they have, or the preconditioning, which are more stronger in terms of other than the natural acceptance. So which natural acceptance may be a driving force for changing themselves, but right now it has to be much more stronger than the preconditioning and the physical facilities. So the thinking has to be more towards natural acceptance. This is what I feel, sir. Thank you.
That's a nice point also, that sometimes our competence may be less because of our preconditionings and our lack of physical facility and such things. But basically, we can see that at whatever point we are at right now, what can we do with our time, with our resources, with our physical facility, in our current state, wherever we are right now, what can we do? That is something which we can look at. So if we were at a more influential position, then we would be able to do more. That is obvious. Like if we were prime minister or something, we would be able to make more changes, more implement, like be able to have more influence. But let's just see what we can do from wherever we are, because most of the people are either students or teachers, right, over here. So teachers, professors, and principals, directors. So all these positions are positions where you can still do quite a bit, because even as a student, there are so many people who are connected to you, like who you have access to in terms of your day-to-day life, and even in terms of like even if you look at teachers, it's even more, because you have so many students who you're teaching. So when you talk once, it reaches all these students. So like that, you can have a lot of kind of impact. So whatever can be done, you can look at how to do, and with the current resources, what you can do, and then do it. And as you said, it's not a lack of the intention. The intention is, like, if we see, if our intention, we can all say that our intention is to make everyone happy all the time and have no problems in the world, like no global warming, no addiction, no problems in the world. That would be our intention. But then how far are we able to do in terms of our competence? Obviously, that's not something which one person can do on their own from our level where we are right now. So we just look at in our sphere of influence, or our sphere of what we can do, we look at that and see the best of what we can do with our resources, with our time, with our physical facility, and with our preconditionings and all that.
Very right, Arjun. And Pramod Bhaiya.
May I ask one question? Actually, it's not related. I know time is also
Nice.
8:35,
Yes.
but just one thing, like two students, they drink alcohol in the hostel and they fight with each other. Okay, not much injuries. Now, as a hostel superintendent, what should be done? Like, what do you say from human values? I'm thinking about all these things. Should we take any action or leave them?
Mostly, I think always for all these discipline issues, right? Mostly the focus is because, I mean, they're doing whatever these things are, the fights and all. Is it because they're happy or unhappy inside? If we just look at this, we can see that all these things are happening because the person is unhappy inside. Like, for example, we look at ourselves. When do we get irritated or when do we get angry? Is it a time when we are happy inside, or is it a time where we are uncomfortable and, kind of unhappy inside?
They
So,
must be unhappy.
yeah, we
I
must be
agree.
unhappy, right? We can see this clearly. So,
Mhm.
at that kind of a time, how can we best help the person? We can make the person more comfortable by sharing the right understanding rather than punishing the person. Because when you punish the person is already unhappy, then he becomes more unhappy, right? And although it looks like it has solved the problem, it has actually worsened the problem for that person, because that person is just like me, just like you. When we can see that we are all similar as a person, I also make mistakes, you also make mistakes, that student also may have made a mistake. So if we can see that we are all similar and we might make different kinds of mistakes, then when we make a mistake, what do we want from the other? We want the other person to give us some kind of support, because we don't know how to solve that problem. We want some help from the other. In that kind of a scenario, if we are getting punished, then it just makes the thing worse for us. So the route forward would be to try to help the other person to develop that understanding, so that they're able to feel happier and not feel the need to get into that state where they feel unhappy, so unhappy and so angry that they start fighting.
Okay. Okay. Thank
So
you.
there can be, I mean, this can be detailed out more. This is just a broad thing of what you can do, but this can be detailed out more about how you can have these kind of sessions. Like in many colleges, they're having this weekly meeting kind of thing with the students, and not discriminating the students also, that, people who are, say, creating the fights, if we call them separately and have a class only for them, then they feel like they're being treated somewhat separate. Like even when I was in college, I was noticing that in Fiji and all that, there was this thing of poor batch and good batch and like that. So poor batch were people who were not so good in studies, not getting the right marks and all that. So I was just thinking that it makes the student, from a student point of view, it makes you feel so bad that you are poor batch, right? So therefore, you don't even put your effort also properly, because you feel that you're not good. You start feeling inadequate, you start feeling bad about yourself. And with that kind of thing, you might feel irritated with yourself. That irritation might come out with to the others also. It might be shared with the others also. And therefore, like, it's just a downward spiral where it doesn't really help anyone. So any kind of punishment doesn't help. Instead of that, you can have a kind of weekly meeting or discussion with all the students, voluntary, whoever is interested. And whenever somebody makes a discipline mistake or something, then we can just try to link with the overall picture, try to link it with their intention also, that they want to be happy, they're using some other method which is not really acceptable by the college and all that, but their intention is this. So then you can always work out a program once you can see that their intention is the same as ours. So you can talk and see what their problems are, what the thing is, why they're doing what they're doing. I mean, like, try to see from their point of view what is going on also
And
for the
probably
day.
actually they consumed alcohol because they were happy initially to celebrate. But then later on, some issue rose and they fought with each other. So initially they were like they were happy, and to celebrate they consumed. Like this was again their understanding that they will be become happy with consuming alcohol. That was their understanding. then when they were under the effect of alcohol, then they had some thought process and they fought with each other. Although both were good student, both are good in studies and good friend also, but fought.
Right. So then this is mostly a matter of the preconditioning and the peer pressure and all these things more than anything else, because the preconditioning that this will make us forget our problems for some time, and we will have more happiness during that time. They also know that the effect is temporary, that it won't last. Your alcohol high doesn't last for very long. It lasts for a few hours, and after that again it's normal. So they also know that, and they know that this is definitely not going to lead to continuous happiness, but they may do it because of that peer pressure kind of thing, which is because we feel that we are in that gang or in that group where we can do these things to feel that we are part of the group, to feel accepted in that group. That could be one reason, the peer pressure. And other thing, that they know that it gives that temporary high and that sensation is good. So because of that sensation, we are drawn towards that sensation, and therefore we do that. Like for tasty food also, same thing.
Yes, sir, yes.
We are drawn towards that sensation. We have experienced it once or twice, that okay, this restaurant gives nice food, so we go there. So we've experienced that sensation before, and we want to experience it again. So that's one more reason why this alcohol must be happening. But then you also see that our intention for health of the body and for everything else, all our feelings, our naturally acceptable state for health is for health of the body, not for consuming these things which cause the health of the body to go bad. So at the time of making a decision, if we always consult our natural acceptance, then we'll be more aware of our decisions, and then we'll take better decisions also. So at the time when that urge is there to go for that alcohol, if you just stop for a moment, pause and think at that point of time that what is naturally acceptable for you and what is your temptation for. So these will obviously sometimes be different. Like in this case, it might be different. That the intention is for good health and for having good friends, accepted, be loving, get love. I mean, whatever that thing is. All those are part of the intention. But since we are not getting that, we are using these techniques, thinking that we'll get it at least for a few moments, and that might be better than not getting it at all. So this kind of preconditioning is what causes these things to happen. And then the fight also shows that the person is unhappy inside. So right now it is coming out because of that alcohol. It is more clear. But that is something which is suppressed inside them, which they are not bringing out in normal situations. They're bringing it out only in the influence of that alcohol.
Yes, right.
So all this, it can be discussed actually. And slowly.
Okay, I think time ho gaya na. We'll discuss
to
na. I think others are
to the
waiting.
frame where you're able to see all these things and start taking action, because everything starts from your awareness, that you look at your natural acceptance and you look at your competence, and you see where things are lacking, and then you make effort for it. And you can make effort for it only when you see what is going to actually work for you. Till then you don't take much action.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we'll discuss next time.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Yes, Arjun, there are many more things which even the students would like to know. Like Muskan was putting up in the chat that in a relation is trust the only feeling. So naturally, beta, we'll be talking of the 9 definite feelings in a human relation. So we'll take up one feeling at a time. And since trust is the foundation value in a relation between one human and the other. So we were discussing that today, and soon we'll be taking up many more of these feelings in our follow-up sessions. So Arjun, shall we call it a day today?
Sure.
And we'll be taking up our sessions forward next Wednesday. So thank you all for being a part of this follow-up session. And we like more and more students to be joining us and take up their feelings. And Pramod Bhaiya, if possible, let's have some of the students in this session so that we can have the link forwarded to those students. If they can join these sessions, it will be really good.
Okay,
Isn't it?
I will next time. No? Next time, student, I will tell student to join.
So, you know, some of your students who will like to join, we can ask Parikshit Bhaiya to forward the link to them also. So that
So first I should get their email ID first.
Yes, Bhaiya. The email ID is also
YouTube
required.
link can also be shared. It's live on YouTube every time.
Yeah, it's live on YouTube also.
Then actually we want to come to know whether they are attending or not. I think on Zoom they will join, then we can see, and they will lively participate
No,
also.
Pramod Bhaiya, no need to force anybody. It's totally on their own consent. Yes, certainly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Nice.
We should not force actually.
Certainly.
Okay.
Yes, so as many of them would like to join, so they can always join the sessions and put up their queries. I mean, put up all kind of questions, all kind of issues they have, right? Arjun will be able to take up their
Actually, I'm
questions.
seeing always my two students, Mariam and Ashwin. They are always here. I
Good.
feel
Nice. Yes.
students, they always come regularly, even if they're not asking questions, but they're actually listening everything. And other students are asking no, so those questions are there in their mind also. What the
That's
question
good.
today Muskan
Yes.
was asking, it is there with all children, I think.
Yes, Priya ma'am, you know, many of the questions which a child puts up, the other child's query also gets fulfilled by that. So that is good. So thank you, Arjun, for taking up such an interesting session and solving so many of the queries of the students as well as some of us, the faculty members alike. And dear friends, thank you so much for being part of this follow-up session. Of course, without our friends, the session will not be as fulfilling as it is with all of you there with us. I can see Mariam. Mariam, beta, you've unmuted. Ashwin, Mariam, would you like to say something? Muskan, would you like to communicate if your mic is working? Just touch on it.
Yeah, Muskan is communicating through chat regularly.
Chat. Yes. So nice, Parikshit Bhaiya. I think we'll